What are you using to listen to your calls?
Oh gosh, it's some blue app. I don't even know the name of it. I think it's called like the conference calls app. I used to have
Okay.
an app that you could listen to conference calls on. It used to be called Hungry Bowl,
Right,
and
I remember that.
yeah, we used to have a feature where you could listen to all the different companies' conference calls on that, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, now it's some blue app. I think it's called the conference calls app or something like that. And yeah, I go on it and boom, right away, like every conference calls up within like usually 1 to 2 hours, and it's so cool, man. So what a time to be an investor.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. So, for the brand new investor who's maybe considering going the individual route, they like what we've been talking about. They like dying on your own sword, making your own choices, learning about the world, and applying that to investing. For someone who is interested in that and wants to learn more about picking individual stocks, where do you think is the best place to start? What's like the most important thing that individual should know or start learning?
Oh man, that's tough because there's so there's so many things. Um, First, you got to ask yourself, I think, like what type of person do you want to be in the market? Because you have a lot of different market participants. You have a lot of different options. You could be a trader, somebody trying to get in and out of stocks. That's certainly not what I do, and I don't think that's what you do, Ryan. But some people like
No.
to trade in and out of stocks. They're trying to get this penny here and penny there, and swing these stocks and things like that. And they really look at stocks, instead of looking at it as I'm buying an underlying business, I'm buying an actual business here. They're looking more of it as I'm just buying this ticker that I think is going to go up or down or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So you got to ask yourself, are you that person? If you're not that person, okay, good, thumbs up for you. Okay, so then you got to ask yourself, like, how long in duration are you thinking, right? I'm usually trying to think more in 3 to 5 year increments. That's what I can kind of realistically see, in my opinion, is like 3 to 5 years out. Or are you more like a Buffett type investor that you're just trying to think like, I'm going to hold this stock until it go the grave, man. I'm going to hold it forever. Like this is, and so you got to ask yourself, where are you trying to go from there? And from there, it's really about learning the psychology of money first. I think that's really important, like understanding compounding, how it works, understanding risk reward, right? It was interesting. A few years ago, I got kind of into playing poker. Living here in Vegas, and just wanted to kind of learn more about poker. And it was interesting learning, kind of how to play high end poker, on a high level, because you realize it's so much about like investing. Like you realize, oh my gosh, like game theory and all this stuff, and taking the risk and when to take an appropriate risk and things like that. Man, it's fascinating. But that's a huge component, is knowing when to take risk, when not to take risk, when is it very attractive. And the thing I always like to think about, what are the chances I double my money on the stock over the coming years versus lose 50%. So that's something. And there's a lot of phenomenal books out there. The Intelligent Investor was one I really enjoyed. It's not a book for everybody, but I certainly really enjoyed that book. The little book of Common Sense Investing is a pretty good book. Um, there's a lot of stock market for beginners videos out there. I used to put out those type of videos years ago. They can definitely get you on the right track. But you got to learn the financials. Income statement, balance sheet, especially. Cash flow can be helpful too, but especially income statement and balance sheet. Learn those. Not super complicated. If you're a fairly high IQ person, you can learn income statement and balance sheet in a matter of a few days. If you're maybe a little slower, maybe it takes you a week or 2 weeks to learn it. But I can tell you, it's not rocket science. Um, and so, because if you don't know financials, then it's really hard to make any judgments on your investments. And then just really get into the business aspects of like understanding what made previous companies successful. It was something I really got immersed into in my first many years of like learning about these. What made this company successful, what products or services made them click, like what was their approach to the market, and just understanding how giant corporations were built over time, because then you can kind of identify patterns in seeing future companies that, oh, I can see how this company can grow into this and this and this, because it's been a lot of examples over time, since the business has been around for a long time, of like how this company can become that next big giant. So but anyways, that's kind of the starter, and then you can kind of go from there.
Yeah. So these days, what does your stock research process look like? Like, how do you go about picking stocks? And I know that's
Yeah,
probably a very complicated question, but Spark Notes version, I guess.
yeah. I mean, first the spark comes of like, how did it even hit me? Did I see it on CNBC or Bloomberg, or did a friend tell me it, or somebody in the private stock group Discord chat message about it, or there's a million different ways to see a YouTube video about somebody talking about the stock. So seeking alpha, like different places, like the spark comes. Then it's about just trying to figure out, okay, do I know what this business model actually does? If I don't know what the business model does, then I'll go to the 10K and I'll kind of, start reading about the annual report, read about the business model. How does this work? Like, how do they make their money? All those sorts of things. And then from there, look at the financial statements, try to think about the business model. Like, is this a business model I believe in for the coming years? Do I need to do more research on this industry? And that's a big part that you get into circle of competence, which is a big Warren Buffett thing, because there's a lot of stocks in the market. There's a lot of industries that you're not going to know crap about, that you're going to need to research that industry for maybe months or years before you really can wrap your head around it. A good example for me is the semiconductor industry. I mean, the semiconductor industry it took me like at least a year of research on semiconductor stocks to really start to understand what was going on there. This is back in like 2013, probably 2012, 2013, 2014, understanding companies like Cirrus Logic and Skyworks Solutions and Qualcomm and all those sorts of companies, and why they matter, and what sorts of prices they can get on their chips and command for those, and everything like that. So anyways, that's I got to figure out the industry. Do I know the industry well? If I don't, then I got to go down the rabbit hole in industry. And then from there, it's really about looking at the current valuation, trailing 12-month P, forward P, where do I think this company's going over time, and kind of going through that process, and then trying to figure out, am I getting a good deal on the stock or not? And there's a lot of stocks that's the other problem. There's so many stocks at a given moment that are usually going to be a good deal. That then you got to figure out, is it worth me buying the stock? Let's say you think it's a pretty fair valuation. Is it worth buying that stock versus putting your money in this other stock over here? Because all these stocks are trying to steal your money. Every single person in the world has a finite amount of money. Every single person, even the rich people have a finite amount of money. So of that finite amount of money, where do you put it? And that's another difficult decision. Does it go over here to this stock, this stock, this stock? And then are you too invested into one stock? So maybe you have to invest it somewhere else because you're already over invested in the stock, right? Yeah.
On that note, like, I mean, how do you determine when is enough? Like, how do you determine that you have enough invested into one particular stock? Like in one of your videos the other day, you were talking, I think, about Fubo, and you said, here, where I'm at now, I don't want to buy anymore. But how do you know when you've reached that point where you've got a full position, even if it's maybe at an attractive valuation or something, I can't add more? Like, when is enough?
A lot of times it's a gut feeling of like, you take everything into account that is like factual, like, the numbers into account, and the current valuation, and the risk, and what are the realistic possibilities this goes really bad, and how bad does bad look? Does it look like zero, or does it look like, the stock goes down 50% and things like that? And at the end of the day, it comes down to a gut decision based upon all the available information you take into account. At the end of the day, it's a gut decision, no different than buying a stock, right? It's like you take everything into account, and then it's like, okay, it's that gut decision of like, I feel comfortable investing in the stock. So the riskier the stock, the less money you can really allocate toward that position, I guess you can say. And the more of like a sure thing it is, and of course there's always risk, and it is never really a sure thing in the markets, but the closer to a sure thing, the more I can allocate toward a stock. So a good example of that is Meta last year. There was one day when I put like $77,000 in Meta in like a 24-hour span, which was crazy. For me, that's a crazy amount of money to invest in a day or whatever, right? But the risk reward at that time was so ridiculous on Meta that I'm like, I got to take advantage of this. So the risk reward was there. And why was it so attractive? The valuation was super low. I thought about what their profitability has been in the past, what it can be in the future, what their balance sheet's looking like. The chances that stock goes down much more versus up substantially, and it just made sense. But at the end of the day, you take everything into account, and it still comes down to that gut decision of like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So the less risky, the more I can allocate toward it. The more risky, I guess you can say, the smaller the position has to be, because if you're wrong, it's a painful loss, obviously. So
yeah, dude. So on the topic of gut decisions, you made a certainly an unplanned and maybe an unexpected move in your dividend portfolio today. What happened?
Yeah, Tapestry has been a pillar in the dividend account for several years now, and been a tremendous stock. Great gainer in terms of money. And it's been one that's thrown us a lot of dividend money off over time as well. But Tapestry made this announcement today that they're going to buy another company named Capri Holdings, which owns Versace, Jimmy Choo, and Michael Kors. And this deal is going to be like, they're going to have to probably go $8 billion in debt or so for to capture this deal essentially. And it's just, I think it's a pretty questionable move that's going to be messy for years to go in the future. And I just looked at the stock and I said, this is a far riskier company now moving forward. I mean, if we're talking about this level of debt with interest rates where they're at, it's no longer the stock I was in before that had $600 million plus of cash, and they had about $1.6 billion of long-term debt and had a balance sheet that's just, fine and dandy. Now we're talking about a company that's cash levels are going to go down, and their debt is to numbers that you can't even really fathom compared to previous, and so that makes it a very risky proposition. And so unfortunately, I cut that one loose today, man. And those are tough decisions, and that's the one thing that's kind of a negative when it comes to actively managing your own portfolio is like you have to make some of those tough decisions in real time and, that you never planned on making. I never thought like, oh, Tapestry is going to buy out Capri for $8.5 billion. Like that wasn't even in my thought process. And yet it happens. It comes out of nowhere. And that's sometimes in the markets, unexpected things are going to happen that you never expected. Ronan was a good example of that, right? Where it's just like, what? Oh, we're going to all of a sudden shut down the worldwide economy? Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, this is insane. So anyways, I had to make that tough decision today with Tapestry, and it is what it is.
Yeah. So what did you reinvest those funds into?
Yeah, so since I was in the dividend portfolio, it was all dividend stocks. Let's see, I bought a Foot Locker. I bought Wynn Resorts with that, which their business is just in a tremendous place right now. Foot
I
Locker is
love
more
the
of a
Wynn.
yeah. The creme de la creme. Macau's just throwing up phenomenal numbers again. They're pretty much back to 2019 type levels, prior to Rona. Obviously, Vegas, we got a lot of excitement coming with F1.
And China's not even fully opened up. China's just kind of coming out of their thing too. So maybe some more growth for Macau from here.
Yeah. Macau should be a growth engine for many years to go in the future for Wynn. So that's a beautiful situation. And anyways, a Foot Locker bought that one. They got a new CEO there, Mary Dillon, who came over from Ulta Beauty, did a phenomenal job from 2013 to 2021 in regards to Ulta Beauty and grew that company like a beast. So she should be able to, reorganize Foot Locker in a good place and put them on a great trajectory over the next few years. Big dividend yield on that one. It's like a 6% type yield.
Mm-hmm.
I bought, let's see, what else did I buy today? There was like 4 other stocks I bought in that portfolio overall.
Little Cheesecake Factory, maybe?
Cheesecake Factory, thank you. Cheesecake Factory, that was a bigger buy for me. Texas Roadhouse, which is,
Beast.
no debt. Yeah, such a great company, so phenomenally run, and no debt on the balance sheet. Like, that's just almost unheard of in that restaurant industry. So, Target was a big buy for me. Target's a sneaky dividend stock. It's kind of going under the radar right now. They went through their drama a few months ago. That will all pass. Target will be just fine. 3.3% yield on that one. And that's one of those that's just, especially when dividend stocks, I like to think about stocks that I can buy. And if they go down 10, 20%, whatever, I can buy the dip on. And it's not even like stressful. It's just like, give me more shares, load up the filing cabinet. It's not like these are questionable companies. Nike, I bought some Nike here today. I don't love the valuation on Nike, but that's one of those I'm like, please go down. I'd love to buy a lot of shares for a much cheaper price than it's at right now.
Yeah.
Those
Nike's got some pretty solid growth though. Like really, from what I remember, really solid growth in sales, really solid profit growth as well. That company just seems to always be firing at all cylinders.
Yeah. You have to pay up, unfortunately, for companies that are really well run. And Nike, obviously, one of the most well run companies for the past 30, 40 years, really. And you got to pay up. No different than Apple. I don't love Apple's valuation, but Apple's one of those companies. It's just so well run. Their products are so sticky. Somebody's iPhone breaks, they go buy another iPhone. So, anyways, that's where I kind of distributed that capital around. And but selling decisions are harder decisions than buys. I don't think a lot of people that are newer to the market understand that. Buying decisions are cake because if you do enough research, you're going to be able to find plenty of stocks you love that are very attractive valuations. The selling decision is tough because it's like, it's like you're breaking up with that stock, and it's just like, it's a whole process. So
Yeah.